Sup everybody, this is Karak with ACG. You know, remember the heady years of gaming when checkpoints stole half your damn forward progress when you died, or save games were 48 numbers long and you had to enter it with that stupid little cursor, or the only way to find out how hurt you were was to look up and check how many hearts were in the corner of the screen, and no one talked, no one ever talked. Hell, you were lucky if you got a mumble or some random piano chord as a character's face moved around like they had palsy and you smashed that A button. Well, guess what? Gird up your codpieces, strap that shield to your back, and put on an oversized helmet, because Overflow Games is coming straight up at your flash and weak spot with a title that harkens back to those yesteryears of gaming when quick saves were nothing more than any kind of save that didn't involve entering digits into a code screen. Now, Cornerstone tells the tale of Tyrim, a young man living in a Viking village who finds out all the fighting men in the village have basically up and disappeared and left all the women. Now, unlike most young boys who would just consider this a blessing in Viking Sears catalog masturbatory disguise, Tyrim sets out to find out who, why, and where everyone is gone. Sailing across sinister seas and deadly filled to the brim with friggin' sharks oceans, you play as Tyrim cutting, smashing, slashing, sailing, burning, leaping, lunging, dodging, and ducking your way into and out of adventure. So let's see if Cornerstone cuts through the modern day conveniences of current games like a Viking Vorpal sword +2 to snicker snackedness through enemies' neck spaces, or if it falls to the wayside, a story of a game lost at sea in the shark-infested waters of better games within the same genre. So hey, you guys know the deal. If you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's the review for Cornerstone, the Song of Tyrim. Sand skateboards, memories of jumping off your parents' garage using a bedsheet as a parachute, and proof that there are no Viking architects left for a reason. Graphics are up first. Cornerstone's a unique game. While simultaneously low resolution and basic, it also has an excellent handle on how to utilize locations and space the best way possible. This is indeed a game that harkens back to the Legend of Zelda style tales, where though locations might be open, they usually funneled you in some kind of archaic lane, like a 1980s version of a MOBA, where you could basically go left or right or forward, and each brought you to the quest location at some point anyway. From the vertically challenging main village to the labyrinthian layers of bandits on other islands, Cornerstone offers unique locations, each with a small twist on the norm. Now, while it's flat shaded and lacking in many of the current day conveniences of graphical effects, it still looks good, but let's be honest, a game like this will only look good to those who understand what they were shooting for, and I think they fairly hit it. Asking for high detailed textures and massive polygon budgets in Cornerstone is akin to wondering why Stevie Wonder isn't a long-range sniper, because both of you are flat out blind. It's going for a particular look, and you know what? It pretty much nails it. Animations, however, I was not so happy with, and a good deal of bugs exist here, with animations getting stuck playing, which means sometimes I'd look like I was climbing a damn ladder 20 seconds after having done so, or I was running around some levels apparently pushing ghostly levers, because Viking life is just hard that way. It's okay, and at times hits what it's going for, but animations for battle, movements, and even traversal I personally think are a little bit weak. Sound, music, and voice. And of course, sound is up first. You know, it's pretty good. Listen, it's not going to win any awards, but whether you're building steps to get you to mysterious cities in the skyline or just hammering out the frame of the world's worst raft, it's okay sound. Weapons have various effects, as do enemies, and though the whole affair could be considered lean for sure when it comes to audio, I have a few complaints about what was there. And for example, I would have loved far more ambient environmental sound other than just a bit of wind in the ocean, and I would have liked more post-processing on locations like caverns and caves, where it can feel surprisingly bare of tonal changes. Also, the footsteps of the main character almost never take into account the location. So if you're running inside a cave, it sounds like you're on wood. Small quibble, but a place where that lack of attention to detail costs your gamer immersion in the location itself. Running on rock sounds like wood. Running on wood sounds like wood. Running somewhere else sounds like wood. There's also a stunning number of audio bugs, including the fact that I got eaten by a shark, restarted at the checkpoint, and from that point on, every time I did anything near the water or in it, it just went fucking ballistic, shooting water everywhere and making huge splashing sounds. It dawned on me, somehow my character had all of the effects on water that the shark had. Completely odd bug, but a bit cool, actually. And of course, that brings us to music. This is solidly in the fantasy light fare you would expect from this kind of title. Even the overly Viking themes are led by charismatically high-flying instruments, like the awesome flute solo within the exploration locations that mends into stringed instruments along the same chord progression, and that does an amazing job mending atmosphere with music. Listen, honestly, most instruments and arrangements just have a certain feel, and some of them remind us of travel and exploration, and those here are performed and matched expertly, and I love the use of things like barred percussion instruments like wood and steel xylophones, as well as what sounds like a good deal of harps. The game is also not afraid of a little bit of negative space in its musical arrangements, and many times it's just you and the enemy or you and the location with music flitting in and out from time to time. And that brings us to voice. Listen, there's barely any, and it's almost all done within the cutscenes. What's there is good, I enjoyed it, but it is very, very lean on voice. Gameplay. So a game like Cornerstone comes out into release with a good deal of its expectations firmly on the genre standards. This isn't going to pop up and surprise, it's got first-person shooter moments, Zelda, now with more Doom. No, it's a third-person action-adventure game with some crafting, some platforming, and a good deal of puzzle solving. You start out as Tyrim, the son of one of the strangely missing men in the same village. As you begin exploring, you find out that you're not the only one worried about what might have happened, as it seems they're overdue, and even for raping, pillaging warriors, somebody's got to have a time schedule to keep. So you basically decide to find out why, and what follows is a multi-locational romp to find new enemies, uncover the answers and the mysteries presented, and craft at least 1 million friggin' boxes. No lie, if I ever see another box, it's going to be about 2 years too soon. Now, Cornerstone calls itself open world, but that's like AAA adult movies pretending they have story. I mean, it's somewhat open world, and that doesn't really begin until a little bit later into the story anyway, and once you understand what's going on, it's not as much open world as it is sort of travel at your leisure to the 8 or so islands that you can explore. Other than a couple scary as hell sharks and location-based moments, there isn't even open world content to explore. It's basically you traveling to different islands to figure out puzzles and quest steps, and while some of those requirements for getting there, like bigger ships, do exist, this game's version of open world is a bit tenuous, especially due to the fact that getting through locations is almost always one specific way anyway. Now, the game is built on 2 tiers, exploring and fighting, with a tertiary tier of building that supports those two, as you can see. Exploring's done on foot or in various vessels you can make as you travel between the islands near your home, meeting crazy characters, and at least one dude who certainly seems to be hinting he just got done fucking a skeleton, and I can guarantee that's not a code word for an actress with an eating disorder. Very, very odd characters in some ways here. Now, some locations will exhibit a fair amount of verticality, requiring climbing, good jump skills, and a mind towards light, very light 3D puzzling. Exploring is funneled fairly tightly though, and it tries to hide what it does, but it does occur. While doing so, you're constantly grabbing items and tracking down enemies like skeletons, bandits, and pissed off fruit and fighting them all. Now, when it comes to fighting, it is much, much more basic. You basically have a weapon and a shield, and you engage in a tit-for-tat battle with enemies who are outfitted with possibly the world's largest counter indicator I've ever seen, as lightning bolts fly out of your head to warn you of incoming attacks. The fact that no one seems to notice that occasionally giant bars of lightning seem to appear above everyone's head is far more surprising than the combat ever was. In fact, combat is poor, with battles lacking in requirements for the one thing you would expect, which is actually skill. If the enemy's attacking, you just block or roll out of the way, and then they wait for you to hit them, and then repeat. In fact, it can be a bit hard at first because you're going to think it's far more complex than it is. It's almost relearning how to be stupid when it comes to combat. Now, crafting, personally, to me, was enjoyable but very light. You have a number of items you can craft, like weapons, mines, exploding barrels, rafts, and the aforementioned boxes of ever-breeding +2. You run around the world collecting items that help you craft other items, and then spend 20 minutes randomly dropping items as you try to switch them around in your inventory. Was not happy at all with the control within the inventory. And then there is the puzzling. Here's both the most enjoyable and clumsiest part of Cornerstone, to be honest. First, the puzzles are fairly rote. Many just involve finding ways into areas, grabbing items, and using them elsewhere. However, a couple are strangely clumsy, both in their completion but also in their requirements. Like, one area needed speed boots to get across, but its timing is pretty tight, so I ran out of speed boots, and I also ran out of stuff to make them. This resulted in me being completely stuck for a good deal of time, and luckily, due to a glitch, I got past this point. Now, at some point while traveling, you're going to create the world's worst and most questionable water vehicles and basically use them to travel the ocean blue. Now, those short-lived, these locations and sections are completely enjoyable as you travel from island to island. But watch out, the odd control and a couple bugs here also stymied me, as my character one time just randomly fell through the floor of the boat and was eaten by a shark without warning. Cornerstone succeeds, I personally think, when its own mechanics are the least in the way. When just traveling and exploring and building items, it's got a fantastic little bit of lightness to it, and it reminds you of games of old. However, battles cumbersome and stunningly basic, puzzles sometimes show an inefficiency to the planning of levels, and the story is really, really rote. Fun factor. It was okay. I enjoyed being on the ocean. I enjoyed running around locations, but once engaged in activities, these locations' fun factor dropped quicker than the pants in a one-way glass booth, and with far less satisfaction. It just wasn't fun once you actually started partaking within the locations themselves. Really stunningly boring, to be honest, at times. So I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never touch it rating scale. This is a wait for a deep sale on the PC, of course. While exploring's okay, the rest falls short, and with the addition of some wicked bugs, this is one title that not only isn't on my short list, I can in no way recommend it to others. So as always, if you like this video, hit thumbs up. If you disliked it, hit thumbs down. Maybe check out the Reddit, the Patreon, Steam page, whatever. As always, peace out and enjoy your week.